All right, y'all, welcome back. We are going to be doing 4.3.8. It is 10 questions, and we need an 80 or better. Okay, what is a 0-day attack? I want to say it is an attack that exploits an unknown vulnerability. Yes. A 0-day attack is a type of cyber attack that takes advantage of a security vulnerability on the same day that the vulnerability becomes known to the vendor. Because the vendor has had 0 days to address and patch the vulnerability, these attacks can be particularly dangerous. Vulnerabilities can be in code, they can be in infrastructure, they can be in, people. So there are people out there that are constantly looking for these vulnerabilities. They are dissecting code, they are dissecting hardware, they are dissecting people. Ooh, my leg fell asleep. And they're constantly trying to get into these systems because there's a lot of money to be had if you do. Excuse me, I had a cough. Okay. Why is it important to keep the operating system and application software current on patches? To improve security and functionality. I talked about this in the last video. These updates are primarily for security functions. And even if not, even if those aren't the primary functions, there is almost always bug fixes. And if you know where there are bugs, there are unintended consequences, memory leaks, out of bounds access, etc. What is patch management? A process to ensure computers run reliably and securely. Good answer. There we go. It's just the process of managing your patches, which, in positive consequence, prevents vulnerabilities and ensures that the computers run properly. What can happen if security tools are used incorrectly? They can create more weaknesses. Yeah. They can introduce vulnerabilities into the network. For example, a poorly configured firewall might allow unauthorized access, or misused encryption tools might fail to protect sensitive data, which makes sense. What is defense in depth? It is a layered security approach. When we say somebody is shallow, typically that means that they don't have very many layers to them. And when we say someone has a little bit more depth, it typically means that they have more layers to them, more complexity than just existing. And so the same thing applies to cybersecurity defense, in depth, right? If it has more depth, it has more layers, more really factors of security. What is the primary function of a firewall? It is to filter network traffic. Right? Yes. The primary function of a firewall is to filter network traffic based on a set of rules. So the word firewall actually comes from cars, and it is what separates the cab from the engine bay. Not only just in the event of an engine bay fire, but it also exists and serves the purpose of keeping heat out of the cab, unwanted heat out of the cab. When the engine is getting hot, especially like on the highway and stuff. And the same thing happens with the firewall on your network. Your router typically has a firewall. Your computer probably has a firewall that is enabled on both of them, and it just either allows or, like a bouncer, bounces out unwanted traffic. Where are hardware firewalls typically installed? I'm actually not quite sure. Hardware firewalls, I would say at the edge of the network. Yes. Hardware firewalls are installed at the edge of the network to inspect all traffic passing through, providing a barrier between the internal network and external sources. So, if we think about data like water, like let's say drinking water, right? Now, yes, you can have a water filter on a specific faucet or a specific shower head, right? But it kind of just makes more sense that, if you care about showering in clean water, you'd probably care about drinking clean water, right? And so you would want to filter all the water before even your water heater, right? Everything coming from the city, you want to filter because we all know that water is nasty, right? And it's kind of the same thing with the firewalls. That's why I chose at the edge of the network, right? Because before it even hits your router, your water heater, you want it to be clean, right? That way your router doesn't have to deal with it, first of all. That's why we're using a separate firewall. And then it can just reliably route information to each computer, and you don't even have to really worry about it. Number 8, what criteria does a simple firewall use besides source and destination? Type of data, protocol, speed, type of data, protocol, defense, and depth level. I'd say it is the protocol. I want to say, destination would be port. Source would be from which computer. Let's say protocol. Yes. Remember, protocols are basically what language are we choosing to speak to each other. And if we agree to speak to each other in English and you start talking to me in Russian, I am just going to honestly ignore what you say. What is the primary function of antivirus software? It is to identify and stop harmful attacks on your computer or network. And it doesn't just scan for viruses like Windows Defender. Whenever I talk positively about antivirus, I'm probably talking about Windows Defender because McAfee is not going to be able to scan your system as well as your own system. What an antivirus does is not, it's not just scanning for viruses that may be running on your system. It also tries to actively prevent viruses from even installing on your system. Whenever you run a suspicious exe, your computer will stop you. Hopefully, if you have Windows Defender enabled, your computer will stop you before doing that. What I do is sometimes I write in assembly, and because assembly is such a low language, because it gives so much access to your hardware, to your RAM, and to your CPUs, because it quite literally tells your CPU exactly what to do. Move this into the register, multiply it, move it out of the register, move it into the RAM, and so on. If I try to run these programs, it will automatically stop me from running these programs, and I have to go enable it and say, hey, like, this is my code. I know what I'm doing. It's okay. Okay, what is heuristic identification in antivirus software? Where do you go learn how to pronounce this word? Heuristic?
Heuristic.
Heuristic? Okay. Heuristic. What is heuristic identification in antivirus software? You know what? I'm going to look up that word again because I don't know what it means either. I've heard it before, but usually speculative formulation serving as a guide in the investigation or solution of a problem. Okay. Looking for actions or behaviors similar to what antiviruses or to what viruses do. Probably say that's the one because it doesn't know for sure, like a list would tell you. Or using a list of known virus patterns. There we go. Yes, if being heuristic means to look for patterns where you are having to, basically surmise your own, inclinations, this would be the best answer, right? If we have a list of known virus patterns and it's just saying your program is doing this, well, we kind of know that program is a virus. Whereas we're looking at actions or behaviors similar to what viruses do, which has a further reach but is less probable, is more in line with the definition of heuristic. So let's go ahead and score the assessment. That should be 100%. I don't think I missed any. That is 100. Thank you. I will see y'all in the next video.